What's up, everyone, and welcome back to SANDCAST, Beach Volleyball with Tri-Born and Travis Mewhirter. We are back for a Beach Access episode presented by our good friends over at Shield, recapping the Rio Elite. And it's an interesting pod when the first item on your to-do list is housekeeping visa problems. As you can see, I'm not in Rio de Janeiro. I'm here at my Tallahassee office, and if you read our Beach Volleyball Digest newsletter, which you can subscribe to, just go on our website, sandcastvolleyball.com. It'll pop up. We'll have you, if you're having trouble finding it, just hit me a DM or drop a comment on YouTube. You'll know that I went to the Tallahassee airport on Monday. Go up to the desk. Nice lady says, "Where are you going?" I say, "I'm going to Rio de Janeiro." She says, "Tough life." I said, "I know." And then she goes, "Oh, do you have your visa?" And so I went to Brazil on four separate occasions last year. Never needed a visa. You just get there, stamp it, good to go. And I said, "No, but I have a 6-hour layover in Miami. I can just kind of fill out the online form." It's happened a bunch of times where you just sort of fill out a form, you pay your $20 or $50 or whatever it is. That's your visa. And she says you can't get on the flight to Miami unless you have your visa. In retrospect, great job, American Airlines lady, because I would have been very sad stuck in Miami, because apparently the visa takes anywhere from 2 days to 3 weeks to come in. My visa came in Friday night. Luckily, Denise Austin was still in Brazil from commentating João Pessoa. Great job from the Volleyball World Ops team. We just performed the old switcheroo. I took Denise's remote commentary assignments, did it right here. Denise then rerouted from João Pessoa. Instead of going back to her house in Portugal, she goes to Rio, and we work it all out. So I get to hang out with my Florida State kiddos, with my actual kiddos, which update on that. So recording this around 6:30. Austin usually wakes up at 7, so I won't dilly-dally a whole lot longer. But yeah, a little travel adversity, and I'd get into my sporting adversity as well. Florida State loses, Ravens smashed, Ryder Cup embarrassment. Tough weekend morale-wise, but it was nice to be home. Nice to be on the mic for the few that I could, because it was an awesome event. Rio, I talked last week about João Pessoa. The crowds in Brazil are phenomenal. João Pessoa, I think last year, it was actually way better than the crowd in Rio, which shocked me given the history of Rio, hosting the first 10 world championships from 87 to 96, and then you get the 2016 Olympics. Rio's one of the most iconic stops in the world of beach volleyball. It's sort of like a mecca. It's a bucket list thing you got to travel to. And then the crowd this year, it showed up. And it showed up because Brazil gave them something to really show up for, where you have an all-Brazil final. First, you have that tremendous rivalry between the USA and Brazil in the semifinals. Again, it's Cheng, Molly Shaw, and Terese and Megan Kraft. Again, it's Victoria and Tamla instead of Anna Patricia and Duda this time. It's Carol and Rebecca. And so it's Carol and Rebecca, and that's where I want to start talking about the actual volleyball, is that Carol Salgado, in the recap that I wrote, she's the queen of Brazil, the new queen of Brazil. So last year in Rio, she wins with Barbara Seixas, legend, 2016 Olympic silver medalist. Barbara retires. Can't think of a better retirement ceremony than that. A month later, Agatha, also a legend in her own right, she retires at the Beach Pro Tour Finals. And so Carol is the last member of this generation who's going out, this dominant generation of Brazilian veterans. And Carol's 38 years old, and she's played 228 international events. That is the record by 15 at the moment. And the next closest active player on that list is Anouk Verger-Deprez at 137. So she's the leader by almost 100 events. She might be setting a record that might never be broken. Now, if you go on BVB and you look up tournaments, you'll see a lot of Americans are like, well, Holly McPeak's played 300 some. This doesn't account for AVPs as well. It's just straight up FIVB/Beach Pro Tour, whatever you want to call it. Carol's at 228, and she's not stopping. She is absolutely, it's remarkable, her longevity. We talk about John Hyden a lot, winning a tournament at 50, and Carol at 38 is not just winning tournaments, but dominating. She led the tournament in points, led the tournament in kills, led the tournament in blocks, was number 7 in aces, and 11 in digs as a blocker. She gets served almost every single ball. For the second straight year, she wins a gold medal here in Rio. It's their second gold of the season, also won in Brasilia. Now, they won with the lucky loser. We'll get to that in a bit. But you just had to be happy for Carol and Rebecca. It's just, especially for Carol, where it's just like, at what point is she going to slow down? And last year, she could have retired going out with Agatha, going out with Barbara. It would have been perfect. She got her Olympic Games, but she just keeps on going, and she's still playing like she's 25 years old. Really fun to watch. Great to watch Carol get that done. Mentioned Brazil, the All-Brazil final. Tamala, Victoria, they win their 5th medal of the season. I remember watching them in Hamburg when they made their debut a year ago, and the CEO at the time of Volleyball World, Finn Taylor, he's like, I really like that Brazil team, where they won a bronze medal in Hamburg. That was their first medal. And I was like, we'll see. And Finn was right. And they've won 5 medals. It was world number 1 versus world number 2. You give Brazil the crowd deserved that final. And I was talking to a couple friends out there in Rio, and they just said, good for Brazil. And these were not Brazilian coaches, not Brazilian players. They're just like, they deserve this. And they do. To host an event, it's not an easy thing. Brazil's hosting 5 elites this season. They're going to end with the Itapema Elite in December. And it's a ton of money. And they deserve all the success that they get. It's now 6 women's elite medals in 4 events for Brazil this season. So stoked for Brazil, happy for them, happy for Carol, happy for Rebecca, happy for Victoria and Tamala as well. Now, I'll get to the American contingent. You see my USA Volleyball shirt. That's just going to be one big section at the end. So Kelly and Molly and Terese and Meg, I will get to them. For now, we're just going to keep going down the list of sort of importance, I think, in terms of storylines. Qatar, Cherif, Younousse, Ahmed, Tijan, they win. It was such a bummer to see them have to drop out in Montreal, where I walked out to record a preview video with Frito, and I see Cherif, and he just looks sad. I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, we're done. So what do you mean you're done? So I guess he had just a normal swing in a practice against Andre Perisic and David Schweiner, and he said his shoulder just felt funny, and he actually said, it felt good enough for me to keep going, but the coaches shut him down. They said, no, you're done. You're done. And so they shut him down. Haven't seen him since. They come back, charge through. They win a fantastic gold medal match against Cuba's Jorge Lyle and Naslin Diaz. Good to see them back on the Beach Pro Tour as well. And Cherif said it. He said, everywhere we go, he talked about what a special place Rio is for him. He said, everywhere we go, we feel like we're the home team, especially here in Brazil. You guys always support us. It was where Cherif made his Olympic debut in 2016. And I was there last year so Brazil has this song, this little chant that they do, where it's this tune. It goes da 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 da, and typically then they go Brazil. And in their semis and finals last year, it was Qatar. And I know, and I talked about it before, and someone said, well, it's really easy to sub in Qatar for Brazil. 2 syllables, it's easy, it kind of flows the same way. But everyone was on the same page. That's what struck me the most, is like no one talked about it. Everyone just said, we're just going to Qatar at the same time. And you saw it again. And between Qatar and Cuba, you talk about 2 of the most entertaining teams on the Beach Pro Tour. Crowd was losing it, despite having no Brazilian teams in the semifinals. And they just adopted Qatar. They adopted Cuba. Fantastic final. And Cherif said it best. He said, beach volleyball won today. And their final was fantastic. One of the nomination for me for match of the year. So for Cherif and Ahmed, they've now won 3 gold medals this season, career highs for both. They won in Xiamen to open the season in May, won a cowbell in Stade back in July, skipped Montreal because of the injury. And so they've now won 3 out of 4 events that they've actually played, 3 out of 5 technically that they have been in the field for. So huge for them. Now, Cuba is when they won their gold medal in Quintana Roo, beating the Argentinian Capagrosa brothers, Nico and Tomas. I meant to do a film room those things just take a long time. And with 2 kids, full-time job here at Florida State, virtually a full-time job commentating, just didn't get around to it. But I dubbed them the most entertaining team in beach volleyball because they just jump so high and hit the ball so freaking hard and make these insane moves and go straight to the crowd, and the crowd loves them. They're awesome, and they play this high octane, high energy style of play. So fun to watch. But and as much as I want to talk about their play in the gold medal match, what got them there is way more significant than that silver medal. They match up against Anders Mol and Christian Sorum in the quarterfinals, and you have two opening sets that are tremendous. 23-21, 21-19, we're like, here we go. Third set's going to be awesome. You can see the crowd. If you go watch, like there's this VIP section behind the courts, and then in between, you got people just stacking in the corners, peering in, because the stands were already packed. Stands over here already packed. Stands behind already packed. So people are just leering in, standing on shoulders, trying to get any look that they can. And what they witnessed was something we've never seen before. Anders and Christian, since they started playing together as kids, they have lost 76 matches. And they've played in 71 tournaments. So they're barely averaging more than, and that's including forfeits. When they've had a couple tournaments where they forfeited all 3 matches. And so they've really only lost less than 1 match per tournament, which is crazy. They have never lost the way they did on Saturday night in Rio. 15-5 in the third set for Alayo and Diaz. They go straight at Anders. Anders sides out 2 for 11. Cuba sides out 100%, hits 100% in transition. Anders has 4 errors. Cuba has 3 blocks. On the match, Cuba hits 71% inside out to 56% for Norway. They side out 56% in transition to 38% for Norway. They hit 7 errors to 18. Alayo outblocks Anders 8-7. I've never seen someone do that to Norway. I've never seen a team come in and look like the better team than Anders and Christian. And so it was fun. And really, the way these last 2 weeks have gone, they've actually ramped up my excitement for world champs that much more, because the way that this season had gone, the way that this last 3 years had been going, it just seemed inevitable that it was going to be, you got Anders and Christian, you got David Oman and Jonathan Helvig, and then you got everyone else. Right? Then you have like sort of a tier 2 of a couple teams, and then you have everyone else. And now it's like, well, we've gone 2 straight tournaments, no Scandinavian team in the semifinal. Last week was the first time that it ever happened. Now we go 2 times in a row. Both Sweden teams, they pulled out. I don't know why. I just think probably some frustration, and I would guess the same thing for Kristen Nuss and Taryn Brasher. And I've talked a lot on this podcast about the post-Olympic hangover or malaise or come down or whatever you'd want to call it. And people are not immune to this. We see this all the time. Phil talks about it a lot, where after he won in Beijing, he said, I was kind of depressed, where you're just like, that's it. And we're seeing it all across from both genders. Germany's Nils Ehlers, Clemens Wickler, they haven't really gotten it together this season. Andy Benesh, Miles Partain, I'll touch on them. They're sort of flat. Anna Patricia and Duda, they took a couple months off for mental health and physical health as well. And so for Oman and Helvig to be struggling, for Anders and Christian to be now struggling, they've had a tremendous year so far. It's not crazy surprising, nor is it an emergency by any means, especially with world champ spots already locked up. You don't want to peak in September, you want to peak in November, which is really hard to do when your season starts in March. And so I don't think it's overall concerning for Norway and Sweden, nor is it concerning for, say, a Kristen and a Taryn. But I do think it's exciting for the beach volleyball community as a whole to be like, World Champs is not super predictable this year, with Cuba rising, with Qatar winning a career high in gold medals, with Andre Perisic, David Schweiner just popping in for random events and winning all those, and with the way that the Brazilian men are playing. And now you got even Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. They're making their way up their career, and I'm going to touch on them soon. But before I get to them, also want to touch on Stefan Bormans and York de Groot, talking about teams who are sort of making their way into that Tier 1A category. They've medaled in 6 out of 7 events this season. They've made a semifinal also at the European Championships, lost in 3 to their countrymen, Alex Brouwer and Steven van de Velde. 4 straight bronze medals for Bormans and de Groot, 6 out of 7 medals. And I know that no one comes in thinking, no kid dreams up, I'm going to be the leading bronze medalist on the Beach Pro Tour or swimming or whatever. Like, I'm going to be the 3rd best. No one dreams of doing that. But to do so 4 straight times and 5 out of 6 is spectacular for Bormans and de Groot. And both of them sort of, they said all the right things on the mic, and then New York tells Kyle, it's like, I hate bronze. And I'm talking to Bormans after, and he goes, I'm tired of bronze. And you got to be careful with what you say, because if you put together a string of 5ths and 9ths and maybe a 13th here and there, like right now the United States, we'd be fired up with 5 bronze medals. I can guarantee you that. It's really hard to do. And even if you have to do this lucky loser thing with Bormans and de Groot, have done twice in a row now, and it is what it is. The system is the system. And so huge congrats. Good buddies out there, Bormans and de Groot, playing really well. And I think that you knock on that door enough, you make enough semifinals, you'll win. They'll follow up on that win in Brasilia sooner rather than later. I mentioned Bormans and de Groot twice in a row, come out of that lucky loser, win a bronze. On the flip side of that, Melissa Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson, they might be the unluckiest winners on the Beach Pro Tour. And it was really funny that I had a couple friends in Rio who had hadn't been paying attention to elites much this season, and they were texting me. They're like, "What is this format? I don't understand how. Like, aren't Carol and Rebecca knocked out, and now they're back, and now they're knocking out Mel and Brandy again? The same thing that they did in Brasilia earlier this year. The system is the system." It's bizarre. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen in any sport, that you can lose in the round of 12 and then advance in the playoffs. I haven't seen anything like it. And Mel and Brandy, unfortunately, have seen anything like it. For the 4th time this season, they have won pool, won their next round, played a team that had been knocked out and brought back, and then lost. Happened to them in Brasilia. Carol and Rebecca got them there. Happened to them in Ostrava. Tina and Anastasia got them there. Happened last week in João Pessoa. Terese and Meg got them there. Happened again in Rio. Carol and Rebecca got them again. Where you have Mel and Brandy, they're just dusting teams in pool play. They're taking care of their round of 12, and then they're just playing a team that has nothing to lose, knocking them out. And so it's frustrating. It's got to be frustrating for them, because they're playing such fantastic beach volleyball. I called their match against the Klinger sisters, and it looked like a Court 1 team playing a Court 5 team. And the Klingers are not a Court 5 team. They're playing, this is the best season that they've ever had. And Mel and Brandy, their Block D, I'd put them up there in the best in the world. That's why they won their gold in Montreal. And when they're playing like that, Mel and Brandy could win this world championship as easily as anybody could, especially with there not being sort of a clear Death Star team, where Kristen and Taryn are showing a little vulnerability. Anna, Patricia, and Duda are kind of wishy-washy. Tamala and Victoria, they've got 5 finals made this year, yes, but I don't think they have that intimidation factor that an AP and Duda or Kristen and Taryn did. And so this year, this World Championships, it's open. It's as wide open of a significant contest of beach volleyball as I think that, I don't want to say we've ever seen, that I've seen in recent memory. And that's both sides. I mentioned that Sweden was sort of the Death Star of the men's side. They're vulnerable. You got no clear-cut number 1, I don't think, on the women's side. And that makes Adelaide, mate, it's exciting. Exciting times coming in November. Last team I want to touch on before we get to the USA report. George and Simon. Man, the World Championships hopes, I had them for dead. I had buried him, put him in the grave. Their best elite finish this whole season was a 19th. George shows that he still got it when he takes that 4th place finish in Stade with Andre out of his sabbatical. But George and Simon hadn't done anything. They came out of the qualifier, won a bronze medal at the Alanya Challenge, but that was it. They hadn't shown the ability to sustain it through an elite, hadn't shown an ability to sustain it consistently in back-to-back tournaments, and then Brazilian home crowd. It's a thing. Back-to-back top 10 finishes in João Pessoa and Rio. Beat the Bayos in a barn burner. in the qualifier, 16-14. 5 out of 5 matches go to 3 for George and Simon. 3 out of those 5 go 16-14 in the third. Break pool, push Chase Budinger, Miles Evans very close in that round of 12. They had no chance of getting out, but back-to-back ninths put them at number 24 in the World Champs rankings. And if no one makes moves above them in Veracruz this weekend, it's a challenge in Veracruz, Mexico this weekend, George and Simon are going to be in. And there's a couple moving pieces there where even if they do get jumped, they might still be in anyway, because there's like Renato and Pedro Sousa, they're still technically in the standings. They haven't dropped out. They're just ahead of George and Simon. You have teams who might also split. It's weird. And then you have the South American qualifiers and continentals. So you have your top 25 spots are based on points. Your next 23 are all wild cards and continental stuff. And so as far as points goes, George and Simon are now in control of their own destiny. And that's the important thing for them. So they are surging at just the right time. We are now going to get into our USA report. But before we do, a quick cup of coffee. And a quick word from our boys at Shield. So these guys, American company, manufacture everything in the United States. It's awesome. That's why we're doing it right before our USA report. Shield Health and Fitness. Check them out. And if you find any products you like, all their tapes, their cooling stuff, recovery, fantastic guys, fantastic products. Use our discount code SANDCAST to get 10% off. Anytime you use our codes, it helps the show quite a bit. So shout out Shield Health and Fitness. So let's start with the good for USA, and I think highlighting it, yes, Terese and Meg, they win another medal. They're bronze. That is their third medal of the season, second straight. Kelly and Molly, they're making their fourth elite semi of the season. Going to get to them in a second, because I think what highlights this USA trip to me is Chase Budinger and Miles Evans. When you go back and think of this last 2-month stretch, I think that they're playing the best beach volleyball of their careers. And you have a salient argument if you want to say, well, what about their run to qualify for the Olympics? That's fair. That's fair. But you think about fourth at the Baden Challenge, their best finish of the season. You win the AVP Manhattan Beach Open. Legacy, stamped, printed right there. Third at the Independent Hermosa Open. Shout out Mark Pataluhi. And then you flattened Marco Kratiger and Leo Dillier at the Joao Pessoa in pool play to break pool. Fall flat after that, but you sent the message. Then you come into Rio, you win your first match of pool play, and then you get your first career win over Anders Mole and Christian Sorum, and you looked the part. It wasn't like Chase and Miles looked lucky, that Anders and Christian were hobbled or sick or anything. They looked like the better team. 21-16, 24-22. You break pool, you get your bye. You beat George and Simon, you make the quarterfinals, you take a fifth. That ties your best elite finish of your career. First time they've finished that high in an elite since the Espino Elite in 2024, where they also beat George and Andre, which might be one of the most convincing matches I've ever seen them play. So Chase and Miles are careering right now, and they are sharpied way into World Championships. They're good to go. Wanted to acknowledge how well they are playing. And also just how well they looked apart. I feel like when they started playing together and they played well, people are like, oh, cool. Like they had a good tournament. This is just who Chase and Miles are right now. And they are playing better than any U.S. team we have at the moment. And I'll get to the women. I'm going to kind of rejigger the order here. Because Andy Benesh and Miles Partain, they're struggling. They're just flat right now. And it's hard to know the reason what's up. And I mentioned the post-Olympic malaise or hangover that is impacting, I think impacting a lot of teams, potentially impacting Andy and Miles. Their World Championship berth is sealed up. They did so at a Norseca just before Rio. So they're fine in that respect. And as I mentioned before, there's no need to peak in September when the tournament you want to really play well in is in November. And so maybe Andy and Miles kind of looked at it and they knew they were straight into elite main draws. And they're like, we don't really have to do too much. The AVP only had 2 real tournaments, and then the league they just seemed a little listless is the word that I think a lot of people have been using. I know that Larry Hamill called them listless. I don't think that's incorrect, where they have to survive against Chile to break pool. They got smoked by Kradiger and Dillier, and then they get knocked out by Mark Nicolaitis and Isaac Carricker. And when we had Miles on the podcast in 2023, talked about this gift that he has for beach volleyball as being his spark from God, and he's trying to fan it into flame. And I just think they need a little spark, just a little life back for the boys. And because when you look at their numbers, their side out from 2024 to 2025 has actually increased by 1%, from 65 to 66. That's an elite number. But then you look at the rest of it, when you look at it holistically, their transition percentage in 2024 was 52%. It's a good number. This year it's 44%. That's an 8% drop. That's huge. Then you look at their errors. Their errors right now are at 235 on the season to 182. And that's a delta that you can't have if you're looking to play well in elites, and they're not. They only have one quarterfinal to show for it this season. And I did for Florida State, for our girls last year, I did a study of the top 10 women's teams in the world. I said, what are the common denominators? Well, the side-out range is between 63 and 65%. Transition range was in the low 50s. But there were two common denominators. One, not a single team in the top 10 in the world for the women's side hit more errors than their opponents. You're hitting 235 to 182. That's not going to put you in the top 10 for the world for the men. The other common denominator, only one team in that top 10 was outblocked by their opponents. And so you need to hit less errors. You need to block them more. You need to keep your side out in that 63 to 65% range. And so the only factor that Andy and Miles are really losing in, their percentage in transition, it's got to get higher, 100%. But they just got to take care of the ball better. Their side out is good enough. It's more than good enough. But they just need to, once they minimize the errors, they're going to be right back to that team we saw in 2023 and 2024 that was briefly in the top 5 in the world. And I still think they're a top 5 team in the world. And I did a little unofficial poll on our YouTube channel. It said, what's the USA team that you trust the most to get a win? Andy and Miles came in at 70% at the time I'm recording this. And so people still trust in those two, still think that they are the best team. The last USA men's team I want to touch on before I get to the bright spots to close it. Schalk and James Shaw, when they opened this season, they were sort of the belle of the Beach Pro Tour ball, the toast of the town, and everyone was sort of anointing them as the next big thing. And my general reaction was, well, hang on for 1 second. Let's just see it play out. All right. They won that bronze medal in Quintana Roo. They shocked Sweden. It was awesome. They just blasted people in an AVP League qualifier. They looked dominant. And when they're playing well, they are dominant because James is a freak, has one of the best jump serves in the world, I think. Chaim, one of the best passers on the planet, sets up Jamesies onto and jump set really well. They're a nice little duo, but they haven't won a match since Ostrava. It has been 7 straight matches that they have lost. 5 of those 7, have gone to 3. 8 sets in that stretch have been decided by 2 points. They're losing these matches, 7 straight matches, by an average of 3.7 per match. That's almost as close as it gets. And so they're not losing ugly. They're not getting blown out. They're hanging in there, but they've only won 2 out of those 8 sets that are being decided by 2. But same thing with Andy. When I went to look at it, like, what's the problem? Like, what's going on with Chaim and James? First 4 tournaments of the year, 11 errors per match. Most recent 4 tournaments of the year, 15 errors per match. 4 errors per match added. When you're losing by an average of 3.71, you don't have to look a whole lot closer. And for James in particular, he's hit 62 errors himself in the last 6 matches. That's more than 10 errors per match just on him. He's at 195 for the season. That's 100 more than Chaim has hit this year. And so they just got to be, they're also getting outblocked. And reference that little study I did, top 10 women's teams, 0 teams hit more errors than their opponents. Only 1 was outblocked by their opponents. Chaim and James hitting more errors and getting outblocked. Their transition rate, not super high. It's in the low 40s. Their side out's good enough. Chaim's side out in the last 4 tournaments has actually increased from 63 to 69. James has dropped from 69 to 64. So their side out is actually good enough. Transition could be picked up. Got to be better taking care of the ball. It's just errors. Errors are the theme with the USA men right now. Last, the good stuff. Kelly Cheng, Molly Shaw, when they partnered up, I don't know what the over-under would have been for how many elite semifinals that they would make in a season, but I probably would have set it at about 3.5. Well, they just made their 4th elite semifinal of the year. They made 2 straight to start the year, made 2 straight here in the latter half of the season, coming off that gold medal in Joao Pessoa. They make another elite, take another 4th. That's their 3rd 4th of the year. Really good. Just fantastic play by them. And they have this ability to hang in matches that they sort of have no business still being in. Their semifinal against Tamla and Victoria comes to mind, where they were outplayed almost the whole match, and somehow they come back and push it to 3. Somehow they hang in, get it to 15-13. And that's what good teams do. You stay in the fight, you hang around, and then you can make your move. And Kelly and Molly, they're just gritty. They are gritty, so congratulations to them. 4th elite semifinal, coming off that big gold medal in Joao Pessoa. And then Terese and Meg, they win their 3rd medal of the season, their 2nd straight. I still think a gold medal is coming. I'll double down on it again if we get any takers. Come on. And while I was calling their match when they sort of knocked out without knocking out Carol and Rebecca, what struck me is that Terese Cannon, I said on air, I said, I think Terese Cannon is the best option player in the world. Sort of eating my words a little bit. I don't think she's the best, but she's in this class of the top 4. I went back and looked at her numbers. She's hitting 73% on 2 inside out, a huge number. That number drops to 64% in transition, which makes sense because transition on 2, significantly more difficult. Plays are often broken. The ball a lot of times is just getting zinged at you. You sort of have to do a standing pokey thing that's going to count as an option. And then I compared that. I said, all right, well, who are the best option players in the world? Kelly Cheng comes to mind. I think she has more range, more aggression, certainly, than anyone on 2. Kelly's hitting 67% on 2 in serve receive, 71% in transition. Crazy numbers from Kelly. Tina Gradina also comes to mind. I think she's the smartest on 2 player in the world. She's hitting 77% on 2 for the season. That number drops to 58% in transition. And the last one, and this is one I really noticed in Montreal, Brandy Wilkerson. She's hitting 69% on 2 in serve receive and 62% in transition. So those are to me, sort of your best 4 on 2 players in the world. Terese, she belongs right up there with them. And I must do a little asterisk, a note. You can't go on 2 without elite passing. So shout out Megan Kraft, Molly Shaw, Melissa Mana Paredes, and Anastasia Samoilova for putting up their partners on 2 with that accurate passing. That's all I have for our Rio recap. Thanks for hanging out and joining me. Cheers. Another little early morning pod here. And this weekend, there will be the Veracruz Challenge. That is the last qualifying event for the World Championships. Again, you have to be in the top 25 of the World Champs standings. It's your best 6 finishes from March up through Veracruz that will be used. You got to be in that top 25. And so it's a huge week for Chaim and James. It's a huge week for George and Simon. Big week for Portugal's Joao Pedrosa and Hugo Campos. Big week for Jonathan Jordan and Adrian Heidrich. The women's side, not a ton of movement going on there right now. It's pretty settled. The 4 women's teams are totally settled. Julia Donlin, Lexi Denenberg, they're in with the other 3 teams that I've mentioned: Kristen Taryn, Kelly Molly, Terese, and Meg. Andy and Miles, they've already punched their ticket via Norseca, so the points don't matter for them. Chase and Miles, they are way in. Chaim and James got some work to do. I still think that they'll be in because the finishes that they're dropping they're top heavy, and that's what you want to be. You want to be top heavy because all they'll need is a 9th or a 5th. They'll improve their points enough. I still think they'll get in. As I mentioned, there's no point in peaking in September, no point in peaking in October. You want to peak in November in Adelaide. So I will be, there's no commentary for the challenge in Veracruz. So I'll do another recap after that with the final World Champs standings. Same thing, beach access right here. I'm going to try to get some proper lighting in here because this lighting is frankly dead terrible. But until then, enjoy the pod and chat with you guys in a week in Veracruz. Shoots.